My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 32 years old. And just last Tuesday, my entire world came crashing down in a way I never could have imagined. My husband Kevin died from a sudden and completely unexpected heart attack. One minute, we were a normal, happy little family. The next, I was a widow, and our daughter was fatherless. And as if losing Kevin wasn't heartbreaking enough, the way my own family reacted broke me in ways I didn't even think were possible. When I made that call, shaking, sobbing, barely able to breathe, I thought my parents would be there for me. I thought they'd drop everything, like any loving parents would, to comfort their grieving daughter. But instead, my mother answered the phone, and in the middle of my tears, she said, "Rachel, can this wait? We're celebrating Sophia's birthday. Right now." Her voice was annoyed, like I had just interrupted her favorite TV show, not like I had just told her that my husband, her son-in-law, was gone. Forever. That night, I sat on the living room floor with my 8-year-old daughter, Lily, clutching her as tightly as she clutched me. The silence in our home was deafening, but the ache was louder than any noise I'd ever known. I kept waiting for someone from my family to knock on the door, to show up, to hold me, to just be there. But no one came. And what happened next? What my family did after that night was even more devastating. If you've ever been abandoned in your most vulnerable moment, left to grieve, to suffer, to break, by the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally, then I need you to hear this story, because what happened to me wasn't just about grief. It was about betrayal. Deep, bone-cutting betrayal that leaves a scar no one else can see. Please let me know where you're watching from. Subscribe if you've ever been hurt by the ones you trusted most. Kevin and I met back in college during our sophomore year at Northwestern. I was struggling to keep up with my economics course, barely passing, and desperate for help. Kevin was a teaching assistant, tall, kind, with the gentlest voice and the brightest mind in the room. He offered to tutor me after class, and I will never forget the way he explained depreciation curves with so much patience, like he had all the time in the world just for me. His kindness wasn't just reserved for me. It was just who he was. But that's when I started to fall for him. First, it was his voice. Then it was his laugh. Then the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. By the end of that semester, we were inseparable. We dated through college, and on graduation day, Kevin did something I still can't think about without crying. He slipped a ring inside my diploma case. When I opened it, I screamed. He got down on one knee in front of all our friends and family and asked me to be his forever. And God, I wish forever really meant something. We got married a year later. I was 23. He was 24. Everyone told us we were too young, that we hadn't seen the world yet, that marriage would trap us. But they didn't know Kevin. They didn't understand how safe and full life felt when I was with him. We were a team, a quiet, beautiful partnership. After Kevin completed his MBA, he landed a job at a well-respected financial advisory firm in Chicago. He worked long hours, yes, but he always came home to us. He made time for what mattered. Kevin wasn't just good at finance, he was good at people. He knew how to listen, how to help. Clients loved him, his team respected him, and I adored him. 5 years into our marriage, we started trying for a baby. We assumed it would be easy. Everyone around us was getting pregnant without even trying. But for us, it was heartbreak after heartbreak. 2 miscarriages that nearly destroyed me. A failed IVF attempt that drained our savings and our hope. I started to believe it wasn't meant to be. And then, one morning, I took a test out of habit, fully expecting another negative, but it was positive. I didn't believe it at first. I took 4 more tests before I even told Kevin. When I did, he cried. And I don't mean a few tears. He sank to his knees in our kitchen and sobbed into my stomach, saying, Thank you for not giving up." My pregnancy with Lily was difficult. I was placed on bed rest for the last 8 weeks. Kevin worked from home, took care of everything, meals, laundry, doctor's appointments. He'd bring me breakfast in bed and talk to my belly like Lily could already hear him. When she was born, I thought I'd be the one to cry the most, but it was Kevin. I'd never seen him like that before, holding her tiny body like she was something sacred, like she was made of light and he didn't deserve to touch it. For 8 perfect years, we built a life I thought was unshakable. Kevin coached Lily's soccer team, even though he didn't know a thing about the sport. He stayed up late watching tutorials, trying to learn so he could be a better coach for her. He attended every parent-teacher conference, every art show, every silly school play. He was the dad who knew the names of all her classmates. His calendar was filled with reminders about Lily's dance recitals and dentist appointments, color-coded so he'd never miss a thing. There were signs, I realize that now. Little things. Kevin occasionally complained about chest pain, but he said it was stress. He'd get winded sometimes when we walked up the stairs, but he'd laugh it off. "I'm getting old," he'd joke. Even his doctor brushed it off. "You're 39, high-pressure job, nothing unusual," he said. "Take some aspirin, cut back on salt, exercise more." It all felt routine, harmless. We had no idea what was coming. That Tuesday morning started like every other day. Kevin made Lily dinosaur-shaped pancakes, humming as he flipped them in the skillet. I was packing her lunch, half listening as they talked about her art show that evening. Before he left, Kevin kissed me on the forehead, kissed Lily on the nose, and said, "I'll be home early tonight. Don't forget to pick up maple syrup. The good kind. None of that fake stuff." Those were his last words to me. At 10:47 a.m., my phone rang. Amanda, Kevin's assistant, was hysterical. "Rachel, it's Kevin. He collapsed during a client meeting. Paramedics are here. They're taking him to Northwestern Memorial." The coffee mug in my hand slipped and shattered on the kitchen floor. I barely noticed. My whole body went cold. I called our neighbor, Ellen, begged her to pick up Lily from school, and I raced to the hospital, speeding through red lights, screaming prayers I wasn't sure anyone was hearing, but I was too late. Kevin was pronounced dead at 11:23 a.m., minutes before I arrived. A massive heart attack. The doctor said it was instantaneous, that he didn't suffer. But their words felt empty, useless. What comfort is there in that? When I saw him, lying there, on the hospital bed, it didn't seem real. His skin was still warm. His hair still smelled like his favorite shampoo. But he wasn't there. The life, the light, was gone. I kept whispering his name, waiting for him to wake up and say, "Babe, I'm okay." But he didn't. He never would again. I somehow made it through the endless blur of hospital paperwork. Forms, death certificates. Decisions I never imagined having to make. Burial or cremation, open casket or closed. Did he have a suit he loved? All I wanted to do was curl up in our bed and pretend this wasn't happening. But instead, I had to be strong. For Lily, for the child who didn't even know her world had shattered. Picking her up from school was the hardest moment of my life. As soon as she got into the car, she said, "Where's Daddy? He promised he'd come to my art show." She was smiling, so full of hope. I pulled over. I couldn't drive anymore. I turned to her and said the words that no parent should ever have to say. "Sweetheart, something happened to Daddy." Her smile faded. "Is he okay?" "No, baby. His heart. It stopped working. The doctors couldn't fix it." She stared at me. "So, he's not coming home?" I nodded and she screamed. The kind of scream that comes from your soul. She clawed at my arms, begging me to take her to him. "I want Daddy. Please, I need him." I held her while she sobbed and screamed in the back seat. I whispered over and over, "I'm here. I'm here." But we both knew that nothing I said would make it okay. That night, Lily refused to sleep in her room. She curled up in our bed, wearing one of Kevin's old t-shirts, pressing it to her face like it could bring him back. Once she finally drifted off, I went into the bathroom, shut the door, and collapsed onto the floor. I screamed into a towel until my throat burned. The pain didn't feel emotional. It felt physical, like something was ripping me open from the inside. That was the moment I called my parents. I needed them. I needed my mom, my dad. The people who were supposed to love me more than anything. My mother answered after several rings, her voice cheerful, music and laughter echoing in the background. Rachel, can I call you back? We're in the middle of Sophia's birthday dinner. It's a full house. Mom. I could barely get the words out. Kevin's dead. He had a heart attack this morning. He's gone. There was silence. Then I heard her cover the phone and whisper something to someone else. When she returned, her tone had shifted, but only slightly. Oh, honey, are you sure? That's just shocking. Are you positive? Maybe it's a mistake. A mistake? I choked. I saw his body, Mom. There's no mistake. Well, that's horrible. But sweetie, we're right in the middle of Sophia's 40th birthday celebration. Everyone's here. We have the caterers and all the decorations. Can you get through tonight? We'll stop by tomorrow, okay? I stood there, holding the phone, numb. My family was having cake and cocktails while my daughter was crying herself to sleep and I was drowning in grief. My dad took the phone. Rachel, this is terrible. Really awful. Did Kevin have a current life insurance policy? You should call them tomorrow. That should be a priority. No comfort. No, we're coming. Just insurance. I didn't even have the strength to argue. I just whispered, I can't believe this is your response, and hung up. I had never felt so alone. And that was just the beginning. The house was too quiet, unnaturally so. It was the kind of silence that creeps under your skin and sits heavy in your chest. I stood in the hallway, staring at the photos of Kevin and Lily that lined the wall, snapshots of laughter, of ordinary moments now frozen in time. I had just hung up the phone after a painful call with my mother, one that left me more hollow than comforted. Sophia's birthday is a milestone, she had said, her voice devoid of empathy. We've been planning this for months. Everyone took time off. You can't expect us to just walk out. As if grief followed a schedule. As if mourning had a slot between cake and champagne. Forget I called, I said flatly before ending the call, the click of the phone echoing in my ear like the slamming of a door. Within minutes, my phone began lighting up. Text after text poured in, some from friends I hadn't spoken to in years. Kevin's old college roommate, Brian, Jennifer, my colleague from work, even Taylor, my high school friend who had vanished into adulthood without a trace. They all reached out with sympathy, with support, with simple, raw humanity. Funny how strangers and near strangers managed to offer more comfort than the people who shared my blood. Ellen, my neighbor from across the street, rang the bell with a steaming casserole and arms wide open. She didn't say much, just sat with me at the kitchen table while I stared at the list of people I needed to notify. She offered to stay the night, but I declined. I needed space. I needed to begin understanding what life without Kevin would even look like. It didn't feel real yet, and I wasn't ready to share that unraveling with anyone else. That night dragged on like an endless film reel of pain. Lily woke up over and over again, crying for her daddy. Her small voice trembled in the dark, and every time she whispered his name, it was like a dagger to the heart. I held her close, stroking her hair, whispering stories about her father, how much he adored her, how brave he always said she was. Eventually, her tiny body surrendered to sleep. But I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, drowning in the emptiness beside me. Kevin's absence was like a scream in the silence. By morning, the truth sat like a stone in my stomach. This wasn't a bad dream. This was our new reality. Kevin's funeral was set for Saturday, 4 days after he died. 4 excruciating days, filled with logistics, documents, condolences, and a crushing weight on my shoulders. I was trying to hold myself together while staying strong for Lily. And in all that chaos, my parents called only once. A brief, shallow conversation to ask what time the service would begin, and whether they should wear black or something more celebratory, as if Kevin's death was a themed event. The day of the funeral arrived cloaked in contradiction, sunny and warm, almost offensively beautiful. Lily picked out a blue dress from her closet. "Daddy always said I look like a princess in blue," she whispered, eyes shining with unshed tears. I helped her dress, carefully braiding her hair the way Kevin used to do for her on her birthday, or the first day of school. My hands trembled, but I managed to finish. We arrived at the funeral home early, wanting time to prepare ourselves for the rush of grief that would follow. Kevin's colleagues came in slowly, dressed in suits, faces etched with sorrow. Some of them openly wept. It wasn't just a coworker they lost. It was someone they loved. They each knelt beside Lily, sharing stories of her dad. Sweet, silly things about how he kept gummy bears in his desk drawer, or how he once serenaded the office during a fire drill to ease everyone's nerves. Those stories, those small, beautiful memories were gifts to her. Someday, they'd mean everything. My parents and Sophia were supposed to arrive early. Instead, 20 minutes before the service, they texted to say they were stuck in traffic. They walked in just as people were finding their seats, whispering apologies and causing a minor disruption. The front row seats I had reserved for family were still empty, so they slid in as if nothing was wrong. My mother gave me a brief hug. Her perfume was overwhelming, floral and cloying. "Traffic was a nightmare," she whispered, adjusting her scarf, "and Sophia had nothing to wear. It's so hard to find appropriate clothes on such short notice." Short notice. That's how she referred to my husband's death. During the service, I caught Sophia checking her phone more than once. My father kept glancing at his watch, and my mother dabbed her dry eyes with a tissue, pretending to cry. It felt like a performance, a poorly acted one. In contrast, Kevin's brother Marcus, who had flown in from Japan just hours earlier, was devastated. His eyes were bloodshot, his face pale with exhaustion. He sat next to Lily, holding her hand, tightly, never letting go. Their shared grief was silent, but powerful. When it was time for me to give the eulogy, my body resisted. My legs felt too heavy. My heart pounded. But then I saw Lily, sitting so still, her small hands folded in her lap, her blue dress glowing in the sunlight, and I found the strength. I spoke about Kevin's generosity, his humor, the way he used to make us groan with his puns and then double over laughing seconds later. I talked about his obsession with real maple syrup and his irrational dislike of cilantro, about the time he built a treehouse for Lily even, though he was terrified of heights. I ended by saying, Kevin always put his family first. As I said those words, my eyes drifted toward my parents. They were already gathering their things. The reception at our home afterward felt like someone else's dream. I moved through the rooms like a ghost, thanking people, accepting casseroles I knew I'd never eat. Kevin's co-workers and our close friends organized most of it. My parents, on the other hand, lounged in the living room, acting like hosts, accepting condolences as if they were the ones who had lost everything. Kevin's parents were the opposite. Despite their grief, they showed up in every way. Diana hovered around Lily, making sure she had food and space to breathe. Robert silently took over the cleanup, staying until the last guest left. Their strength didn't make me feel ashamed. It made me feel safe. Then I heard my father talking near the drinks table. Kevin was doing well at the firm. Partner track, right? The life insurance must be generous, plus investments. Rachel and Lily will be set. It felt like I had been slapped. I wanted to scream, to demand how he could reduce my husband's life, our loss, to a dollar figure. But I didn't. I didn't have the energy. I was too focused on Lily, too drained to fight a battle I knew I couldn't win. When everyone finally left, Kevin's parents and Marcus remained. Diana tucked Lily into bed and sat with me for a while. "You're not alone, Rachel," she said softly. "Not now. Not ever." But when I lay in bed that night, the weight of solitude returned. The people who were supposed to protect me, to rally around me, had failed me. The support came from Kevin's side, not mine. A week passed, then 2. One morning, as I sat at the kitchen table with a pile of insurance paperwork, the doorbell rang. Lily was at school, her first full week back. The teachers were sending regular updates, letting me know she was quiet, but holding up. Through the peephole, I saw my parents. My father was straightening his golf shirt. My mother checked her lipstick in a compact mirror. I hadn't heard from them since the funeral. Just a few generic texts. Thinking of you. Hope you're doing okay. Nothing real. Nothing human. I opened the door, too stunned to hide my surprise. I didn't know you were coming. We thought we'd check in, my mother said breezily, walking past me. Is Lily at school? Good, we can talk openly. The way she said it made my stomach turn. I should have known something was off. They made themselves comfortable in the living room. I brought in coffee, slipping into host mode on autopilot. They should have been comforting me. But instead, my father ran his hand over the sound system. Kevin had installed just a month before he died. Nice setup, he said. Kevin had good taste. The past tense cut like glass. After a few minutes of awkward chatter about Lily's school, about my mother's garden club, my father cleared his throat. It was the same signal he always gave before delivering serious news. Rachel, he began, setting his mug down on a coaster. We wanted to talk to you about your situation. I blinked. My situation? Your financial situation, my mother added quickly. Now that you're, well, adjusting. I stared at them, uncomprehending. I'm not sure what you're trying to say. My father leaned forward. We know Kevin provided for you. Of course he was responsible. But your mother and I, well, we're not getting any younger. Our retirement fund took a hit, and healthcare costs are rising. The room spun slightly. And then it hit me. They weren't here to check on me. They weren't here for Lily. They were here for money. Are you seriously asking me for money right now? I asked, my voice flat but simmering beneath the surface. My mother hesitated, a flicker of shame crossing her face, but my father, ever bold, pressed on. We just assumed, he began, that with Kevin's position at the firm and the life insurance payout, you'd be able to help family. After all, we are your parents. The audacity left me stunned. My husband's funeral flowers were still fresh, and here they were, hands outstretched like vultures. How much are you suggesting? I managed, the numbness in my voice hiding the storm underneath. My father smiled slightly, as if he thought we were having a reasonable conversation. We were thinking something substantial, maybe half of the payout. That would give us a comfortable retirement and still leave you and Lily with more than enough. I blinked. Half, I repeated slowly. You want 50% of Kevin's life insurance. The money meant to support your widowed daughter and granddaughter, so you can retire in comfort. He nodded as though it were the most logical proposal in the world. You couldn't even comfort me when Kevin died. You were at a birthday party, I said coldly. My mother's lips parted in protest, but my father waved it off. Now, Rachel, don't get emotional. This is just about planning responsibly. And we did attend the funeral. How generous of you, I said, each word sharp as glass. We raised you, my mother interrupted, the guilt card sliding across the table like a loaded weapon. Paid for college, helped with the down payment on your first home. We deserve some consideration now that you've come into money. Come into money? I snapped, my voice rising. My husband died. I didn't win the lottery. I lost the love of my life, the father of my child. And you're standing here like it's some kind of windfall. My father stiffened. There's no need to be dramatic. Kevin knew his condition. He should have taken better care of himself. And now that he's gone, it's practical to discuss his estate. I could hardly breathe. He had the nerve to blame Kevin for his own death while trying to profit from it. Get out, I whispered. Rachel, be reasonable, my mother pleaded. I said get out, I screamed, surging to my feet. How dare you come here begging for money meant for Lily? How dare you speak about Kevin like that? He was a better human than either of you will ever be. Their shocked expressions were almost laughable. They'd never seen me angry, always trained me to be the peacekeeper, the good daughter, while Sophia threw tantrums and got her way. But that version of me was gone, burned up in the fire of grief and betrayal. We're only asking for what's fair, my father muttered, standing stiffly. We are your parents. You owe us respect. Respect is earned, I said, trembling, and you've earned none. Leave now before Lily comes home and sees the kind of people her grandparents really are. They left, muttering about ungratefulness and reconsidering the relationship. I closed the door behind them and collapsed onto the floor, shaking with rage. Later that afternoon, I picked Lily up from school. She seemed quieter than usual, her thoughts far away. As we drove, she finally asked, Mommy, why were Grandma and Grandpa at the house today? My stomach dropped. Did you see them? I asked. She nodded. Mrs. Wilson let me go to the bathroom during math, and I saw their car. Did they bring something for us? Her innocent curiosity broke me. No, sweetheart. They just came to talk about grown-up things. She looked out the window, quiet for a long moment. Then she whispered, Did they ask about Daddy's money? I almost slammed on the brakes. What makes you say that? I asked carefully. I heard Grandpa at the funeral, she said. He told Uncle James we'd get a lot of money because Daddy died. Is that true? My chest ached. She had overheard that? At the funeral? Your daddy made sure we'd be okay, I said gently. Yes, we have money now. But that doesn't fix anything. I'd give it all back to have Daddy home again, she said, her voice small but certain. Me too, baby, I whispered, fighting back tears. Me too. That night I called Marcus. He had gone back to Japan temporarily but promised to return during summer to help us settle into our new life. I told him everything, my parents' visit, their disgusting request. Are you serious? He snapped. They want half of Kevin's life insurance? That's insane. I know. I can't believe they even asked. But I'm worried they won't drop it. My dad can be relentless when he thinks something's owed to him. There was a pause on the line. Kevin told me once about his financial plans, Marcus finally said. He wanted to make sure Lily would have everything she needed through college and beyond. He would be furious if he knew your parents were trying to take that away. I know, I said quietly. I think I need to talk to Thomas about our options, just in case. Good idea. And Rachel, don't let them guilt you. Kevin did. This for you and Lily, for your future. Protect it. The next day, I met with Thomas, our family lawyer. He reviewed Kevin's will and insurance documents with a calm professionalism that reassured me. This is unfortunately more common than you'd think, he said, flipping through the papers. But rest assured, Kevin made everything airtight. You're the sole beneficiary of his life insurance and retirement accounts. Your parents have no legal claim. Could they contest the will? I asked, heart pounding. He shook his head. They'd have no grounds. Kevin was of sound mind and the documents are properly executed. Parents don't have automatic inheritance rights, especially when there's a spouse and child. I felt lighter, but the relief was short-lived. When I stepped out of his office, my phone buzzed with texts. One from my father. We need to discuss this like adults. Call me. One from my mother. I raised you better than this. Family comes first. One from Sophia. You've always been selfish, but this? Even for you, it's low. Mom and Dad deserve better. Sophia, the same sister who spent Kevin's funeral scrolling through Instagram, was calling me selfish. I almost laughed. Almost. That night, as Lily and I ate dinner, my father called. I didn't answer, but his voicemail was waiting. A family meeting, Sunday afternoon, our house. This concerns all of us. Be there at 2. Bring Lily. I set the phone down, my appetite gone. Lily noticed. Was that Grandpa? She asked quietly. Yes, I said. He wants us to come over Sunday. Do we have to? She asked. It was small, that question, but it gutted me. Lily used to love visiting her grandparents. I think we should, I said gently. Sometimes you have to face hard things, especially if they're trying to take something that matters. Lily was quiet, then she nodded, her eyes focused and mature beyond her years. Can I bring something with me? I have an idea. What kind of idea? Something Daddy taught me, about standing up for yourself. I stared at her for a beat, then smiled softly. You can use the computer after dinner. I didn't know what she was planning, but I trusted her. She was Kevin's daughter, brave, clever, and compassionate. The days leading up to the visit were thick with emotion. Grief lingered like fog, but now anger curled inside me too. Anger at my parents for turning Kevin's death into a money grab. At night, I'd lie awake, rethinking my childhood, watching memories replay through a new lens, like the time they left my dance recital early to catch Sophia's softball game. But never once did the reverse. Or the Christmas when I got socks. And Sophia got the expensive art kit we'd both begged for. Or how my academic awards were expected, while Sophia's mediocre grades were treated like Olympic gold. Individually, they'd seemed small. But stacked together, the imbalance was undeniable. I called Amanda, Kevin's assistant, now my friend. I told her everything. Am I overreacting? I asked. Is this just grief twisting everything? Rachel, she said firmly. If my parents pulled this, I'd cut them out forever. This isn't grief. It's betrayal. It's cruelty. You're not overreacting. You're reacting like a human being. Her words helped. So did another long call with Marcus. He was planning to take a leave from his university in Tokyo. You and Lily are my family now, he said. I'll be there. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't have to face this alone. Marcus's kindness shattered. Something in me, I didn't expect it, not from someone outside my own bloodline. He told me Kevin had made him swear, back when I was pregnant with Lily, swear that if anything ever happened, he would watch over us. And Marcus, loyal to the end, intended to keep that promise. His word, so quietly honorable, stood in painful contrast to the coldness I'd been receiving from my own parents. Lily, meanwhile, had thrown herself into a secret project in her room. I'd find her hunched over her little desk, sketching furiously with colored pencils, surrounded by scraps of paper. When I asked her what she was working on, she only smiled mysteriously. It's important, Mom. For Sunday, she whispered, guarding the details like a little soldier on a mission. Saturday morning arrived heavy with dread. I couldn't face my parents without being fully prepared, so I dove into Kevin's financial documents again. He had always been meticulous. Every paper filed, every number accounted for. In the back of the filing cabinet, I found something unexpected, a sealed envelope with my name in Kevin's handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. The letter was dated just 3 months before his death, around the time of his last physical. My dearest Rachel, if you're reading this, it means the doctor's warnings were more serious than I admitted. I didn't want to worry you, so I kept it to myself. But I updated everything. Our will, the insurance, the trusts. Everything goes to you, with specific provisions for Lily's education and future. Use it wisely. Live fully. And never forget. My greatest joy was being your husband and Lily's father. I collapsed into tears, clutching the pages to my chest. He had known. He had suspected something, and instead of burdening me, he bore it in silence. I was furious at him for keeping it hidden, and yet overwhelmed by his foresight and care. That was Kevin, always trying to shield me from pain, even at the cost of shouldering it alone. Then, another paragraph caught my eye, one that sent chills down my spine. I've set up a separate trust for Lily that can't be touched until she turns 25, except for education expenses. This is crucial, Rachel. Your father has approached me twice about investment opportunities, which were thinly disguised attempts to get money. I declined politely, but I fear he might try to use my death to pressure you. Don't let that happen. Your parents have made poor financial choices for years. I sympathize, but Lily's future must come first. My heart sank. My father had already tried to extract money from Kevin while he was alive, something Kevin kept from me, likely to protect my relationship with them. Even in this, Kevin had put me first. I felt a second wave of betrayal, not from Kevin, but from my own blood. I immediately called Thomas, our lawyer, and asked if the trust Kevin described was legally secure. He reassured me it was ironclad. No one can touch it, he confirmed. Still, bring the letter to the meeting. It's not required, but having Kevin's exact words might help if they try emotional manipulation. Sunday arrived, tense and gray. There was a quiet determination in Lily as we got dressed. Her small shoulders were set like stone, her eyes filled with resolve far beyond her years. I knelt beside her. "You don't have to come," I whispered. "You can stay with Ellen." "No," she said firmly. "I need to be there. For Daddy." On the drive, she held a large manila envelope tightly to her chest. I asked what it was. She simply replied, "It's a message from me and Daddy." As we pulled up to the house I grew up in, I noticed several familiar cars. My aunts and uncles. My parents had summoned an audience. I knew why. They were counting on the pressure of public shame, assuming I'd fold in front of extended family. "Are you ready?" I asked. Lily nodded. "I'm ready, Mom." "Don't worry." We walked up the steps hand in hand. I reached for the bell, but the door swung open before I could touch it. My mother stood there, dressed like she was heading to a church sermon, her expression carefully crafted with just enough sorrow to seem respectable. "Rachel." "Lily, come in. Everyone's waiting in the living room." We followed her through the same hallway where I'd once skipped with Lily in my arms, back when Kevin would pick her up and spin her around. But now it felt foreign, like enemy territory. My father sat like a king in his recliner. Sophia lounged on the sofa arm, glued to her phone. My Aunt Rita, Uncle James, and Uncle Terry with his wife Barbara were all seated as if for a formal event. "Thank you for coming," my father began, as if chairing a board meeting. "We have some serious matters to discuss." I didn't sit. I kept Lily close. "Whatever you have to say it in front of Lily," I told them. "She deserves to know." My mother pursed her lips. "Rachel, this isn't appropriate for a child. If it's not appropriate for her to hear, then it's not appropriate for you to say," I cut in. "This is her life, too." My father exhaled sharply. "Fine, let's be direct. Your mother and I have been reviewing our financial situation. As you know, we helped you through college, paid for part of your first home." I swallowed back the urge to snap that they had funded Sophia's failed art school tuition with double the generosity. "We feel," he continued, "that given the substantial money you've received from Kevin's death, it's only fair that you help the family now. We propose a fair distribution, enough for our retirement and some for Sophia to stabilize her career." Sophia finally looked up, offering a smug, almost victorious smile. "I've prepared a document," my father added, handing me a printed breakdown. 50% to your mother and me, 15% to Sophia." As I read, I felt the blood drain from my face. They knew the exact value of the life insurance. Uncle James, of course. He worked in the industry. They had planned this. "You want 65% of the money Kevin left to protect Lily's future?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Money that Kevin earned, that he designated for us?" "Family helps family," my mother chimed in. "And your father and I aren't young anymore. Our health expenses are mounting. Sophia is struggling. We're just thinking long term." "The long term?" I echoed. "Like when you couldn't be bothered to leave Sophia's birthday party the day Kevin died?" A ripple of discomfort moved through the room. Aunt Rita shifted in her chair. "We've apologized for that," my father said sharply. "But we had guests from out of town." "You had a choice," I snapped. "You chose not to come." Sophia jumped in, her voice sharp. "This isn't productive. The point is, you're wealthy now. We're struggling. Mom and Dad did everything for you growing up. You owe them." "And what about Lily?" I asked, finally raising my voice. "Do you think Kevin died so you could buy a new car or book a cruise? That money is for his daughter." My father stood, his face crimson. "We are your parents. We raised you. We fed you. You owe us respect." "Respect?" I laughed bitterly. "Where was your respect when my husband died? When you ignored Lily's grief? When you turned your backs on us?" "That's not fair," my mother whispered. "We're trying to be practical." "Practical?" I repeated. "Then you'd ask how Lily's doing, offer help, make meals, show care. Not this vulture act." The room fell into a dense, suffocating silence. No one moved. No one dared speak. The tension hung in the air like a storm about to erupt. My Uncle Terry dropped his gaze to the floor, his discomfort radiating from every inch of his body. His wife Barbara stared at my father, eyes wide with disbelief and something else, maybe disgust. Meanwhile, my mother, usually composed and unreadable, shifted in her seat, lips tightening into a thin line. It felt like the whole house was holding its breath. Then, unexpectedly, Lily stepped forward. Her small hands still clutched the manila envelope she had brought in with her. She had been silent through the entire confrontation, just watching, absorbing every word, every expression, every lie wrapped in civility. But now, her voice rose, clear, unwavering, and louder than I'd ever heard it before. I have something to say. Her announcement sliced through the silence like a knife, and all eyes turned to her. This child, just 8 years old, had somehow become the most commanding presence in the room. My mother attempted a condescending smile. "Sweetheart, the adults are having a serious conversation right now." But Lily didn't flinch. She didn't shrink under the weight of my mother's words or the dismissive tone. Instead, she took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders like she was standing in front of a firing squad. "This is serious too," she said. "It's about Daddy, and it's about what he would want." Her voice trembled slightly, but she didn't let it stop her. She looked around the room, her gaze settling on each person, daring them to interrupt her. No one did. Not even Sophia, who had finally put her phone down and was staring at her niece as if seeing her for the first time. "Daddy always said that when people show you who they really are, you should believe them," Lily continued. "He said family is about more than blood. It's about love and showing up and being there when it matters. You didn't show up." Her voice cracked now, raw emotion rising to the surface. "When Daddy died, you didn't come to help Mommy. You didn't call to ask if I was okay. You didn't hug me when I cried every night. You didn't do anything. But now you're here because you want something? You want his money?" The room was dead silent. Her words struck like lightning. No excuses, no rationalizations, just the undeniable truth. She reached into the envelope, pulling out a single sheet of paper and walking slowly over to my father. She handed it to him without a word. I leaned over to glance at it as he held it in trembling hands. It was a drawing, but not just any drawing. It was designed to look like an invoice. At the top, in Lily's neat, childish handwriting, it read, "Bill for real love and support." Underneath were several handwritten lines, each more powerful than the last. "Being there when Daddy died. $0 not provided. Helping Mommy. When she was sad. $0 not provided. Hugging me when I cried. $0 not provided. Being real grandparents, priceless, but not earned." And at the bottom, in bold letters, "Total due, 0. Then Lily said, "You came for money. This is what you earned." It was the most damning document I had ever seen. A child's drawing, a simple piece of paper, had just unraveled the entire illusion my parents had tried to create. And there was no argument, no defense, no justification strong enough to counter what Lily had just done. My father's hands were shaking. My mother began to cry, though whether it was out of guilt or humiliation, I couldn't say. Sophia looked stunned, her mouth slightly open, like she was seeing her niece as someone entirely new. I stepped forward, taking Lily's hand in mine. "We're done here," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. No one stopped us as we walked toward the door. No one dared. Before leaving, I turned back and added, "Don't contact us again unless it's to apologize and show that you've actually changed. Lily deserves better grandparents. And I deserve better parents." As we walked out of that house, my childhood home, I felt something shift. It wasn't just the end of a conversation. It was the end of a legacy of emotional manipulation, of guilt, of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. It was a full severing of toxic ties that had bound me in silence for far too long. In the car, I hugged Lily tightly, tears streaming down my face. "That was incredibly brave," I told her. "I'm so proud of you." She hugged me back with her small arms. "Daddy always said we have to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Was I right, Mommy?" Yes, baby, I said, voice cracking. You were absolutely right. On the drive home, I glanced at her often, still stunned by what she had done. The manila envelope, now empty, lay on the back seat. I'd been so consumed with my own anxiety about confronting my parents, I hadn't even thought to ask what Lily was planning. But somehow, in her own way, she had understood everything, more deeply than I ever expected. Lily, I asked gently, how did you come up with the idea for the invoice? She stared out the window, her face calm but thoughtful. Daddy and I were watching a movie once. Someone gave a bill to a person who was really mean. Daddy said sometimes people don't get it unless they see it on paper. Her voice trembled, slightly. I thought Grandma and Grandpa needed to see what they didn't do. I reached over and squeezed her hand. Your daddy would have been so proud of you today. And I am too. When we pulled into the driveway, a figure was waiting for us on the porch. Marcus. He had flown in early from Japan, surprising us with an unannounced visit. Ellen must have given him the spare key to let himself in. The moment he saw us, he rushed forward and wrapped both me and Lily in a warm embrace. For a second, it felt like Kevin was there too. In Marcus's mannerisms, his gentleness, the way he looked at Lily with love and pride. How did it go? He asked, looking between us. Before I could answer, Lily piped up. Aunt Lily was amazing. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Aunt Lily? I laughed through the tears. Apparently, I've been promoted. It's an honorary title for bravery. Over dinner, we told him everything. Every word, every look, every manipulation. His face darkened when I recounted my father's so-called inheritance proposal, but he beamed when Lily described the invoice. That's so, Kevin, he said, chuckling. Clever, bold, and the right kind of guilt trip. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Marcus and I sat in the kitchen drinking tea, the silence between us comforting. He finally broke it. They're not done, he said. People like your parents, when money's involved, they don't just walk away. I nodded slowly. I know, but I'm not giving in. I won't betray Kevin's wishes, not for them. You've thought about what that means going forward? He asked gently. It was a question I'd been avoiding. Part of me wants to cut them off entirely, I admitted. But I don't know if that's fair to Lily. They're the only grandparents she has left on my side. Are bad grandparents better than no grandparents? Marcus asked softly. He had a point. Kevin's parents, Diana and Robert, had been calling Lily every other day. Sending care packages, planning visits. They were grieving too, but they never let their pain eclipse Lily's needs. They were there. The next morning, I woke up to 8 missed calls from my mother, 3 from my father, and 1 from Sophia. The texts ranged from guilt-tripping rants to tearful apologies that reeked of manipulation. I responded to just one message from my mother. There's nothing to discuss until you acknowledge the harm you've caused and show real change. Lily and I need time. Then I blocked their numbers, temporarily, not as an act of revenge but for space, for peace. I emailed Thomas, our family lawyer, to let him know what had happened. He reassured me once again. They had no legal claim. But still, he would be prepared. In the days that followed, they tried everything. Flowers with vague apology cards. Messages passed through mutual friends. My father even showed up at my workplace. He was escorted out by security. What I didn't expect, however, was a phone call from my Aunt Barbara. I want to talk, she said. Privately. Curious, I agreed. Over coffee, she told me the truth. Terry and I were horrified, she confessed. They told us the meeting was about planning a scholarship in Kevin's name. We didn't know. Her words carried no theatrics, just sincerity. And for once, it felt like someone in my extended family actually understood. They've always favored Sophia, she added. Everyone's seen it. No one said anything. Maybe we should have. 1 week after the confrontation, a letter arrived. Formal, cold, written on my father's business stationery. It read, "Unless you are willing to come to a reasonable financial arrangement, we will be forced to reconsider our relationship with you and Lily." A threat, disguised as logic. But I didn't feel fear. I felt relief, permission to let go. I filed the letter away with Thomas. 2 weeks after the confrontation, my mother showed up at Lily's school during pickup, but I had already warned the administration. They called me immediately. By the time I arrived, she had been asked to leave by the principal. Standing in the parking lot, her shoulders hunched and face pale, she looked smaller than I remembered. We locked eyes, and she whispered, "You're turning everyone against us." But I wasn't. They had done that all on their own, and I was done cleaning up their mess. "No, Mom. It's not me pushing you away," I said, keeping my voice steady, though my heart was pounding. "It's your own actions that have caused this. Please don't show up at Lily's school again." Her mouth fell open, eyes shimmering with tears, as if the consequences of her choices were only just becoming real. "We're your parents," she pleaded, her voice cracking under the weight of regret. "You can't just cut us out of your life." "I'm not cutting you out," I replied calmly. "But I am asking you to take a step back. If you want a place in our lives, it has to begin with respect. Respect for my boundaries, for Lily's safety, and for Kevin's memory. Do you want to be the grandparents who support and love Lily unconditionally, or the ones who saw her father's death as a financial opportunity?" The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. She looked down, unable to respond. And that was the last time I saw either of them for nearly 2 months. In those quiet weeks, I focused on what mattered most: Lily. Rebuilding life without Kevin was like trying to put together a puzzle without the corner pieces, but I had help from those who truly cared. Marcus stayed with us for 3 months. His presence filled the house with warmth. Kevin's laughter echoed in his voice, his calm mannerisms, even the way he held a coffee mug. He became part of our daily routine, not trying to replace Kevin, but helping preserve the parts of him that mattered. He taught Lily to play chess, patient and thoughtful, just like Kevin had planned to do. And when I was finally ready to face the towering boxes of Kevin's belongings, Marcus sat beside me, sharing stories that turned painful memories into moments of light. We laughed, cried, and held space for grief in its rawest form. Kevin's parents were our anchor during those months. Diana spent long weekends with us, teaching Lily how to bake Kevin's favorite cookies, peanut butter with just a hint of sea salt. The kitchen, once cold, smelled like home again. Robert took Lily fishing at a quiet lake nearby, passing down knots and casting techniques Kevin had learned as a boy. Their love was steady and undemanding, never conditional, never transactional. News of my parents' behavior traveled through the family grapevine, sparking a ripple effect of regret. Aunt Rita called out of the blue, apologizing for attending the ambush meeting. She said she'd been told it was a gathering to plan support for me, not a financial intervention. Her voice cracked when she admitted she should have walked out the moment she realized what was happening. Uncle James, who had sat silently during that confrontation, mailed a card a few weeks later. It was short, but sincere. He expressed regret for not speaking up, saying, "Silence can be complicity, and I was wrong." Even Sophia eventually broke the ice with an email. While far from an apology, it acknowledged the timing of her financial request had been poorly considered. It wasn't much, but for Sophia, it was the closest she'd ever come to admitting fault. 3 months after Kevin's death, on what would have been our 13th wedding anniversary, I received a letter. A simple white envelope, no embossed letterhead, no legal threats. Just my mother's handwriting on the front. Inside was a letter unlike any I'd received from them before. "Dear Rachel and Lily," it began. "We've spent the last several weeks reflecting on our behavior and the pain we've caused during your time of unimaginable loss. There are no excuses. We allowed greed and pride to override our love. We failed Kevin's memory. We failed you." It continued, point by point, acknowledging everything. Skipping the funeral, the financial pressure, the ambush. For once, there was no softening language, no justification cloaked as explanation. They didn't ask for forgiveness, or even for contact. They simply expressed hope that one day their actions, not words, could earn a second chance. I read the letter again, then again, and again. each time trying to determine, was it real? Was it sincere? Or was this another performance, a new strategy to get what they wanted? I showed the letter to Marcus. "It feels different," he said cautiously. "Less manipulative, more accountable. But ultimately, it's your call." I tucked it away, not ready to respond. The wound was still too raw, the betrayal too recent. Whatever happened from here would depend on them, and only them. For now, I needed space to heal, to rebuild a world for Lily and me, one that honored Kevin, not the fractures left behind. As Marcus prepared to return to Japan, he suggested one final gesture before leaving. "Let's celebrate Kevin's life, not with mourning, but with laughter." And so, on Kevin's birthday, we held a backyard memorial unlike the formal funeral. It was casual, full of his favorite barbecue foods, his playlist echoing across the lawn. Friends shared hilarious stories, college pranks, workplace antics, fatherhood moments. Kevin's parents brought photo albums, and Lily, oh Lily, presented a memory book she'd made. It was filled with ticket stubs, sticky notes, little drawings, and mementos from their time together. Missing from the event were my parents and Sophia. I hadn't invited them. I couldn't, not yet. That boundary had to hold. This was sacred. A safe space for real grief, real joy, real remembrance. Later that evening, as the stars emerged and guests trickled out, Lily tugged at my sleeve. "Mom," she asked gently, "can we invite Grandma and Grandpa next time?" I paused. "Which grandparents, sweetie?" "Your parents," she said quietly. "The ones who asked for money?" Her eyes were big, honest, full of the empathy Kevin had always carried. "I think Daddy would want us to give them another chance. If they're really sorry." Tears welled up in my eyes. Kevin's heart was beating inside our daughter. "We'll see," I told her. "If they show us they've truly changed, maybe next time." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was something, a crack in the wall, a door slightly ajar. That envelope had marked a turning point. In the immediate aftermath, the family was divided. Some called me heartless. Others whispered their quiet support. Aunt Barbara became a surprising source of comfort, checking in weekly, offering encouragement without pressure. Uncle Terry wasn't the warmest man, but he sent Lily science kits and books that matched her interests, unlike the princess-themed gifts my parents kept sending as if trying to mold her into someone she wasn't. Then came the most unexpected message of all, from Jennifer, Sophia's daughter. She was in her early 20s and had always seemed distant, but she emailed me with something I hadn't realized I needed. "I've always seen how differently Grandma and Grandpa treated you compared to Mom," she wrote. "What they did after Kevin died was inexcusable. I just wanted you to know, I think you were right to stand your ground." That message? It broke something loose inside me. It was validation, from someone who had nothing to gain. But my parents didn't stop easily. In the weeks after I cut them off, they shifted tactics. First, they sent relatives to guilt-trip me. Then came long, emotionally manipulative emails, painting themselves as the wronged parties. They even tried using Lily's school as a contact point, leaving notes at the office addressed to her. It was invasive. It was desperate. When that didn't work, the tone darkened. They hinted they might contest Kevin's will, even though they had no legal grounds. That's when I turned to Thomas, Kevin's old law school friend. He drafted a cease and desist letter, laying out the baselessness of their threats and the legal consequences of continued harassment. After that, things finally quieted. The silence was uncomfortable, but at least it was peaceful. Still, the emotional fallout lingered. But through that wreckage, something beautiful grew. Support came from corners I hadn't expected. Kevin's coworkers started a college fund for Lily, adding to what Kevin had already set aside. My neighbor Ellen, a retired teacher, started helping Lily with homework when focus became difficult. Even my boss, who had never been known for warmth, gave me flexible hours so I could attend grief counseling with Lily. 6 months after Kevin's death, Marcus returned, this time with news. I'm transferring to the university here, he announced over dinner. Linguistics department starts next semester. You're moving here? I asked, surprised. I made a promise to Kevin, he said simply. And it's easier to keep it when I'm nearby. Having Marcus close didn't erase the pain, but it made the rebuilding feel less impossible. He didn't replace Kevin. He couldn't. But he carried his spirit forward, like a bridge between past and present. His presence gave Lily someone who remembered her dad not as a symbol, but as a brother, a person. 4 months after the confrontation, on Lily's 9th birthday, another envelope arrived, another letter. But this one came with a small package, a book about astronomy. Real thought had gone into it. It wasn't another glittery princess diary. It was something Lily might actually love. The letter acknowledged the pain. It didn't ask for forgiveness. It didn't even ask for a clean slate. Just one thing. May we see Lily on her birthday. Just 15 minutes. In a public place. With you there the whole time. I asked Lily. She was hesitant but curious. Hopeful but guarded. So I arranged the meeting at her favorite ice cream shop. I laid out boundaries clearly. No pressure, no gifts beyond what was already given, no talks of the past. That day, as we waited, I watched Lily glance nervously at the door. When they arrived, they looked older, quieter. My mother's eyes filled with tears the moment she saw Lily. My father seemed unsure of what to say, but for 15 minutes we talked about school, about stars, about nothing and everything. And when it was over, Lily gave them a small, polite hug. She didn't forgive them, but she didn't shut the door either. It wasn't reconciliation. It was the possibility of one. And for now, that was enough. The meeting was awkward, tense. Silences lingered in the air like fog that refused to lift, but to my surprise, it was free of conflict. No accusations, no guilt-tripping. My parents, once masters of passive-aggressive manipulation, seemed different, quieter, measured. They focused solely on Lily, gently asking about her favorite subjects in school, the books she was reading, what she liked to draw. There was a softness in their tone I hadn't heard in years. No mentions of money, no backhanded comments about Kevin or the decisions I'd made. It was almost as if they had studied restraint, memorized the boundaries I had laid down, and made a deliberate effort to stay within them. It was odd, unnerving even, but something about their restraint made me pause. They had clearly rehearsed their behavior. Every word felt carefully chosen, but the very fact that they had rehearsed at all, that they cared enough to prepare, meant something. It was a flicker of humility I had never witnessed from them before. As we were leaving, my father turned to me, his voice low. Would it be okay if we did this again sometime, maybe next month? There was no demand in his question, no assumption of entitlement, just quiet hope. A man unsure of his place in the family he once ruled with unspoken authority. It was that hesitation, that subtle shift, that made me consider it. I'll let you know, I replied. That simple exchange opened a door, just a crack. Over. The next few months, we allowed carefully structured visits. Short, intentional, with firm boundaries. I remained cautious. They were still on probation in my mind, every action weighed, every conversation monitored. But they never overstepped. They didn't try to see Lily without permission. They didn't ask about Kevin's estate. They didn't press into our lives where they weren't invited. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, their behavior began to change. Not through grand gestures, but through quiet, consistent effort. Then came the first anniversary of Kevin's death. A difficult day. I decided to hold a memorial, something private, but meaningful. And for the first time, I chose to invite my parents. Not because we had healed, but because I needed to know if their change was real. This was the test. They showed up, dressed simply, no drama. They brought with them a photo album filled with pictures of Kevin at family gatherings, photos I'd never seen. Childhood birthdays, barbecues, blurry snapshots of him laughing with cousins. They stood back during the service, never inserting themselves into the center, never seeking attention. They were just present. respectfully so. After the service, my mother approached me. Her hands trembled slightly, and there was no trace of her usual performative grief. "We've started seeing a family therapist," she said. "Not just for what happened with Kevin, for everything. We're trying to understand how we failed you, where it all went wrong. It wasn't an apology, not directly. But it was more than I ever thought I'd hear. Change, I've learned, doesn't arrive with a bang. It doesn't shout from the rooftops or arrive in tearful speeches. It creeps in, slow, uncertain, sometimes unrecognizable. But it was there, in their restraint, in their listening, in the way they finally stopped trying to rewrite the past and started owning it. Of course, not everyone followed that path. Sophia, for instance, did not handle the loss of access to Kevin's money with quiet grace. In the weeks that followed, our falling out, she unleashed her bitterness online. Cryptic posts laced with venom, comments that hinted at betrayal and injustice. She tried to turn extended family against me. Whispers spread, stories distorted. The victimhood she wore was as transparent as it was exhausting. But as time wore on, her isolation became more apparent. Our parents, while not perfect, were changing. And in contrast, Sophia's refusal to self-reflect became glaring. Nearly a year passed with minimal contact. No calls, no texts, just silence. And then one afternoon, she asked to meet. A simple message. "Can we talk?" I agreed, cautiously. We met at a quiet coffee shop tucked away from the noise of the world. She looked tired, older, not in years but in weight, like someone carrying too many regrets and nowhere to place them. "I've been jealous of you my entire life," she said, eyes fixed on the table. "You were always the one who got it. Right, school, life, Kevin. I always felt like I was falling behind. And when he died and left you everything, it felt like proof that I never measured up." Her voice broke, just slightly. I hated how it made me feel. I wanted to hurt you because I was hurting. That doesn't excuse what I did, but I want you to know. I'm trying to change. It was the most honest thing she had ever said to me. Did it fix everything? Of course not. But it cracked the door open just a little. Enough for us to look at each other not as rivals or adversaries, but as sisters who had both been broken by the same storm in different ways. Meanwhile, Lily and I continued navigating our grief. The sharpness of early loss had dulled into something softer, still heavy, still painful, but manageable. She had nights when she cried for her father, when she clutched his old hoodie and asked questions I couldn't always answer. But she also had laughter, playdates, stories she wanted to share at dinner. She lived in the full spectrum of emotion, grief and joy coexisting in her small, resilient heart. With the help of Thomas, Kevin's best friend, and now one of our most loyal supporters, I launched a foundation in Kevin's name. He had always dreamed of providing financial education to underserved communities, and this was my way of honoring that dream. It became more than just a cause. It became a lifeline, a place to pour my energy, my grief, my hope. Through the foundation, I met people who shared Kevin's values, who believed in fairness, in giving back, in lifting others up. It helped me feel connected to him in a way that wasn't just about loss, but about legacy. On the second anniversary of Kevin's death, I took Lily to his favorite place, the lake where he used to fish, where we had once spent hours just sitting in silence, watching the water ripple in the sun. We sat on a bench, hand in hand, the breeze whispering through the trees. "Mom," Lily said softly, "I think the envelope I gave Grandma and Grandpa helped them." I turned to her, startled. "What makes you say that?" She shrugged, looking out over the water. "They're different now. They ask how I'm doing. They remember what I like. They don't interrupt me or tell me what to feel. They listen." She bent down, picked up a stone, and skipped it across the lake the way Kevin had taught her. Daddy always said people sometimes need to see themselves clearly before they can change. I swallowed hard, blinking back tears. He did say that. Your dad was very wise. She leaned into me. I still miss him every day. But I think he'd be happy with how we're doing, don't you? I wrapped my arms around her. This brilliant, tender-hearted child who carried so much of Kevin's Spirit. Yes, baby, I think he'd be very proud of us both. Losing Kevin had shattered the illusion of what family was supposed to be. It had peeled back layers of denial, exposing truths I had long buried. Some relationships didn't survive the exposure. Others, unexpectedly, did. My parents were now cautious figures in our lives, not fully restored but present, respectful, trying. Each visit a small test they slowly learned how to pass. Marcus, who had once stood on the sidelines, became a steady presence. He visited often, brought Lily art supplies, took her on hikes, taught her how to build a kite. An uncle in the truest sense of the word, not by blood, but by choice. Kevin's parents remained our unwavering foundation, loving Lily with a devotion that never wavered. And as for Lily and me, we had each other. We had faced grief head-on, weathered betrayal, and come out the other side not unscarred, but stronger, wiser. Our bond wasn't just that of mother and daughter, it was a partnership forged in the fire of shared loss. The money my parents had once coveted remained untouched, apart from what was necessary for our living expenses and Lily's education. I realized that Kevin's true gift wasn't in the wealth he left behind. It was in the values he lived by. The integrity, the compassion, the strength. His legacy wasn't measured in numbers. It lived on in the way we stood our ground, in the way we loved, in the way we refused to let bitterness win. As we walked, back from the lake that day, Lily slipped her small hand into mine. I think the best way to remember Daddy is to be kind, she said, but also strong. Like he was. Help people, but don't let them take advantage. My heart swelled. That's exactly how we honor him, sweet girl. Grief doesn't move in a straight line. It loops and stumbles. It shows up in unexpected places, in songs, in smells, in sudden memories. I still have days where the ache is too loud to ignore, when I reach for my phone to text him, only to remember. When I hear Lily laugh and wonder if he would have made the same joke. But those moments don't define us anymore. They sit beside us quietly. Part of the journey, but not the whole of it. The family we rebuilt after Kevin's death doesn't look like the one I started with. But it is real. It is honest. And it is rooted in something far stronger than obligation. Love freely given, respect fiercely protected, boundaries courageously held. To anyone out there grieving while navigating the wreckage of complicated family ties, know this: you are not alone. The pain may feel isolating. The betrayals may cut deeper when they come from those you once trusted most. But setting boundaries isn't cruelty. It's clarity. It's choosing to protect your peace. To protect those who depend on you. To rewrite what family means on your own terms. If this story speaks to you, I hope you'll share your experience in the comments. You never know who might find comfort in your words. And if it resonated with your heart, please like and subscribe. Because family isn't just about blood. It's about love, respect, and the people who show up when it matters most. Thank you for walking through our story. I hope it reminds you that healing is possible and that honoring your worth is the most powerful legacy you can pass on.